Hey guys, today I'm back and I'm bringing you a video talking all about the load, why it's important, what we want to see, and why, okay? So, every pitcher is different. Every pitcher has a different pre-motion, backswing versus no backswing, what they do in their pre-motion, but there is a very specific load position that is considered optimal, okay? Meaning, if you get to that load position, as long as you get to that load position, you're going to have the most explosive launch off the rubber, and you're going to be most likely to get into a good reach part of the pitch, which sets up the remaining stages of the pitch, okay? And as we know, the load is important for those two reasons. It sets us up to be explosive, which is where the vast majority of our power behind the pitch comes from, and it sets us up to get into a good reach part of the pitch, which then sets us up to get into power K, which then sets us up to get into a good delivery, okay? So really, truly, the load sets up all the remaining stages of the pitch. So it's really important to understand what the load position should look like and why, okay? So when we're in the load, we want to be in what you've probably heard is called a sprinter's like position. So if you imagine what a sprinter, an Olympic sprinter looks like when they're about to come off the blocks, okay? They're down, okay? Heels up, knees bent, weight forward, knee going forward past the front toe. We're gonna stand up and do that exact same thing, okay? So we wanna be in that sprinter's like position. So let's talk about ideally what we wanna see here, okay? So if you have a backswing, okay, just gonna pretend I have a backswing here. Here's ideally what we wanna see. I like to tell my girls, nose forward, chest forward, and most importantly, knee forward, meaning that my nose, chest, and front knee should be going forward past my front toe. The knee going forward past the front toe is a concept called shin angle, and it's critical for getting a good pushback and straight outward launch off the rubber, okay? So, chest forward, nose forward, knee forward. We want to have relaxed bend in both knees, heels up off the ground, okay? Everything square to the target, toes, knees, hips, chest, pointed forward towards the target. This is going to give us the best position for an explosive outward launch, as well as getting into a nice square reach part of the pitch. So whatever you do in your load, as long as you get to that load position, you're probably going to be okay, okay? So whether that's the very typical rock back, get forward, okay? Whether you rock back and pick the heel up, which I personally like to do, pick the heel up, push back and go. Whether you do a slide step and then get forward, whether you just kind of start in a load position and then push back, as long as you get to that load position, chances are your launch and your ability to extend into a reach are going to be pretty good. So let's talk about some common load issues that I see, okay? This is probably the most common load, which is fine if you can do it correctly. Sometimes I'm not a big fan of it because girls never get to that good load position. So that very typical rock back onto the back foot, pick up the front toe, and then load forward, okay? Some big issues I've seen with that. One, never truly getting forward. So because they put their weight onto that back foot, they then kind of end up sitting down. Can you see now how I'm not in that forward position? My knee is not going forward past my front toe. My chest, my nose are not going forward past my front toe. So now I'm not going to be able to explode outwards as much as I could. I might end up pushing up. I might end up opening too soon. So again, if you're able to do this and still get to that good load position, my pitcher Ada does a really nice job of that, go for it, because that's great. But if you're not able to get to that good load position, again, the best way to see how you're doing in any part of the pitch is to take video of yourself, okay? If you're not able to get to that good load position, you might want to consider doing a different load. The other issue that I see with that, very common rock back and pick up the toe is that now my weight is on this back foot and not the front foot. I've taken the weight off of my front foot, okay? So now it's really easy for one of two things or both to happen. I've seen a lot of pictures where when they rock back like this, because the weight is off of that front foot, they then end up taking an illegal step with that front foot off the rubber, because it's easier to do that. Your weight's on the back foot. If you keep your weight loaded onto that front foot, you can't really pick it up and take that illegal step. Kind of gets rid of that problem. The other issue that I've seen is because the weight is on the back foot, it's much easier to do things like turn as you're coming down. Turn the toe, turn the knee, which, as we know, creates that pre-tracking position, our arms behind the body. We're not accessing the correct muscle groups for a good push off the rubber, and you can end up opening too soon. You can end up with things like dry foot collapse, just not getting a good explosive launch. So you have to be careful. Again, I know it's the most common load, and again, if you can do that kind of load and still get to that good load position, by all means do it, okay? But if you're having some of those issues like taking the step or turning the body or not getting to that load position, you might consider trying something else, okay? A little adjustment that I like to make to that kind of load, it's really similar, okay, is you can still rock back onto the back foot, but instead of picking up the toe of the front foot, pick up the heel, okay? Because then, again, you can't really take the step, you can't really turn the foot. All you have to do is push back with that heel and drive outwards. I have a couple of pitchers who do that, and they're really, really successful with it, okay? So heel, push, go, okay? So really like that, just little tweak to that very common pre-motion has been helpful for a lot of my girls. I know I made a whole video on this before, but again, the other big issue with the load that people need to be careful of is starting with your feet too wide apart. So regardless of what your pre-motion is, you don't want to be starting with your foot back here. You don't want to be taking that step back, because having too much separation between your feet makes it impossible to get to a good forward load position, really affects how you push and drive off the rubber. Let's take a look at just some common loads that I really like, provided that you can get to that good load position. So again, if you can do the classic rock back with the toe up and still get to that load position, that's fine, do it. Like I said, I like the little tweak where you pick up the heel instead of the toe and then really push off and go. That's one of my favorite ways to kind of let pitchers still do that classic rock back, but adjust it just a little bit so it makes the push off better and it makes it more likely that they're going to get to a better position. Another one I really like is kind of just starting in that load position. And if you still want to do some kind of rock back, you can do more of a shift back onto the back foot. Okay, see how I never really take the weight off that front foot though, and my back heel never really drops? You can kind of shift back, push, and go. Take a look at that again because it can be kind of confusing. Shift back, push, go. So as you shift back, if you have a backswing, that's when the backswing goes back, and then as you push forward, it stays back and then comes up. Okay, if you have no backswing, it could be 1, 2, 3. That's a really good, smooth one that kind of still allows you to have a rock back, but keeps your feet in a better position. Another one that I really like kind of keeps me springy on my toes. So again, I kind of start in that load position. I let my backswing go back. I push up onto my toes. So up, push, go. So without stopping, up, push, go. Again, I want you guys to start thinking about everything in your pitch starting from the ground up, creating that ground force. And that starts from your feet, okay? So if you're flat-footed or your feet are turning or you're not loaded correctly or sitting down, you're losing your ability to use your feet correctly. The first part of that load is pushing back with your back foot and then your front foot. So if you're flat-footed or not in that good load position, you're not going to be able to do that. That's why I like that kind of push up onto the toes and then push back. So you're really getting those heels up and pushing back off the rubber. So let's take a look at all these loads again in slow motion so you can kind of see how they're done correctly, okay? So the classic rock back. My adjustment to the rock back. the kind of half rock back. And the push up onto the toes. So this has been my load video. I hope it's helped you understand the load a little bit better, as well as see some examples of what I feel are good loads. I've got a lot more videos coming your way, and I'll talk to you soon.